Handle to this end, we're going to make this nice whitewood area here the strike point.
Alex makes the top and tail cuts, removing weight at the bottom and making a V-shaped incision for the handle. In the early years of the game, cricket bats were all one piece of solid willow. But as bowling speeds increased, so did the number of broken bats. In the 1830s, bat makers started to splice willow handles into the blades, so they could flex to absorb the shock of the striking ball.
Oh, lovely shot. That was a beautiful off-drive, which would sting his hands, but for a rubber shock absorber in the handle of the bat. Fascinating, isn't it?
Bowling just got faster, and bat making evolved. Rubber-infused cane handles were first introduced in 1853, giving batsmen the much-needed shock absorber they use today. In the modern game, balls are being delivered at 90 miles an hour, so you need even more rubber in your handle. Modern handles are made from 12 laminated pieces of cane, with 3 rubber springs as opposed to 1.
If you're, say, Alistair Cook and you're facing up to Dale Steyn and you dig out a Yorker, that's an impact speed of about 140 miles an hour. You need somewhere for that energy to go, and that's why you have this. It stops your hands, your fingers and your wrists from being broken by a cricket ball.
With the handle glued firmly in place, it's beginning to look a lot like a cricket bat. But unlike these fine young men, it's still a little rough around the edges. Chris is responsible for shaping and pressing the blade, making sure the balance is just right.
This one's going to be a bespoke bat, so it's aimed at a particular customer, so it's all to do with how they play the game and also the preferred weight and balance of the way they play. And that can vary around the world for different surfaces and different sort of skills. So all I'm going to do now is I'm going to kind of trim up a few of the extra bits that we don't need and shape a bit of the back of the blade.
Chris selects a particular profile and draws on it with a pencil. This acts as a guide as he starts shaving down the timber. Chris needs to keep the bat within the dimensions stipulated by the Marylebone Cricket Club, the guardians of the game.
Most of the tools are very traditional. The draw knife is probably the quintessential bat maker's tool. The bat makers with their draw knives are very much like batsmen and their bats. We all have our own little sort of sizes and weights and things, and this is from 1938. There's a belief in some of the carpentry trades that tool steel after the Second World War really dropped in quality. So you'll find a lot of guys searching out for old tools.
Bat makers have been using the same tools and techniques they've been using for years. The only thing that's changed is the dress code.
The back of the bat is now due for still more attention. Very highly skilled work indeed. What fun this man must have given grown-ups and boys alike. Some would say his life is to be envied.
Do you know, I couldn't agree more. It wasn't long before Chris's skills gained him his first big commission. Legendary West Indian cricketer Shivnarine Chanderpaul paid a visit to the workshop, found a piece of willow he liked, and asked Chris to make him a bat.
I'd never made a cricket bat for a pro, so I was a little bit nervous, and I was hoping John would do it for me. And John goes, well, he asked you, and Shiv used that against England, and I was lucky enough to see some of it at the ground.
John has racked up his half-century. He's been at the company for 56 years. He's made so many bats, he stopped keeping score at 275,000. John also holds the record for bats shaped in a day. 150 is what cricketers call a daddy century. But he's got no plans to retire hurt.
Retire? What's that? No, I'm just going to carry on as long as possible. And probably bury me under the floor here.
Many of John's bats, however, have finished their work, resting in the company museum after seeing action on the international stage.
So we've got bats from all sorts of players, really. There's Andrew Strauss, Laura Marsh, the England women's team player, David Gower, and in the back row in some of these glass cabinets are some of the really old bats going right back to the 1800s.
Once the bat has been roughly shaped, Chris needs to compress its face to create a hard shell. This is the tricky bit.
This machine, when we're at full extension, is going to be putting about 3 tons per square inch onto the bat face, which is quite a lot for a piece of wood. Most of the pressure is focused in what will become the sweet spot. Normally what you find is to get the highest performance out of a cricket bat, you're getting right to the edge of breaking it.
Willow is much more like a reed than it is a wood. It's that cellular structure inside, and when you compress that face, you end up with a really hard core on the outside, on the surface, and a nice soft spongy core underneath it.
And it's that gives the cricket bat its familiar ping. and that lovely kind of bounce. So now it is really a performance piece of equipment rather than just a lump of willow.
Chris continues to plane down the bat, getting closer and closer to the required weight and shape.
Once you start getting to the basic profile, you start kind of picking it up in the hand like this to feel how it balances in the hand. And really then the shaping is all about putting the weight in the right place. In Australia, where the ball picks up high, bounces high, they might go to have the weight higher in the blade because that's where they're going to be contacting the blade a bit higher because it bounces up. Somewhere skiddy, like a lot of the British pitches, you'll probably go to have the weight a bit lower because it's not going to lift as high and you're more likely going to hit the ball lower down in the blade.
The bat has been shaped, sanded and buffed. All that's left are the stickers, and it's ready to knock one out of the park. When you buy a bat, you're paying for the quality of the willow. Bat makers put the same love, care and attention into each one. You can buy a good quality cricket bat for under 100 quid. But their best bat, the Legend, costs almost £1,000.
The Legend is made from the top 1% of willow that we grow. So these are really beautiful bats. Not only does it have to be pristine cosmetically, it has to have the highest performance we can get out of a piece of willow. If you were to buy one of these and played cricket with it, you'd have the season of your life. These are almost too good to give to the pros. And what the pros tend to use would be something more like this. This is actually called a Pro Performance, and it's designed to really be used on the world stage.
That'll set you back around £600, but you get what you pay for. And a test batsman needs the very best.
If I'm making a bat for a world-class batsman, Shivnarine Chanderpaul, his bats are £2, 8.5 ounces. He has at least 13 grain across the face. The blade is a 1/4 of an inch longer than standard. The handle's an inch shorter than standard. The weight for his bat is right down in the bottom of the blade, and he also likes a redwood edge on his bats. And it's done him pretty well. He's one of the great test batsmen of all time. In comparison, somebody like Alistair Cook pretty much takes a bat straight off the shelf. As long as it's the right weight, which is about £2.10, and it goes well, he's happy.
And that's cricket, born amongst the shepherds in the Kentish Wealds and developed in the fields of Sussex, where even today, as we've seen, willows are still felled, and master craftsmen shape the bats as in days gone by.
Menarik di Check In OK.
Dia minta dia perabot ni camping baik kan ke?
Van Nomad setiap Selasa 10 malam. Ikuti kisah pengembaraan dan pengalaman menarik Fiza Frizi dan Ida Yunus di sepanjang perjalanan mereka merentasi wilayah Eropah Timur dengan menaiki sebuah van nomad yang diberi nama Slot. Semestinya hanya di saluran OK. Menarik di lensa OK. Saksikan sebuah program majalah Travelog Eksplorasi bersama Fakri Syafiq ke destinasi-destinasi menarik di seluruh pelosok Malaysia dengan menunggang motosikal untuk mendalami kisah-kisah unik dan adat budaya dalam 1001 kisah setiap Selasa 12.30 tengah hari.
Fakri yakinlah kalau semua ikut majalah ni sampai habis, memang banyak pengetahuan dapat. Amboi, baru cerita sikit dah tak sabar lah.
Semestinya hanya di saluran OK.
Apa arti kemerdekaan kalau rakyat tidak dibebaskan? Saya selalu bicara tentang surah Al-Balad, la uqsimu bihadzal balad, dan di situ disebut bagaimana falah tahamal aqabah, bagaimana boleh angkat darjat ketinggian kita ini dari sudut nilai hidup. Jawabnya fakku raqabah, bebaskan manusia dari apa bentuk penindasan kehakiman dan kemewahan. Kita ada kuasa, saudara, kerajaan perpaduan kuat sekarang. Yang mengigau masih mengigau. Tetapi kerajaan alhamdulillah masih kuat. Kuat untuk apa? Kuat untuk melaksanakan program yang kita janjikan kepada rakyat. Fakku rahabah. Bebaskan manusia dari apa juga cengkaman, menghina mereka, menghamba abdikan mereka. Dan ini tanggungjawab kita terbesar.
The Mechanical Watch. And not just any watch.